You can't simply deny that death after death after death after death, that something is wrong. And I can't tell you exactly, therefore I can't tell you what my hopes would be, because I can't tell you what the answer is. Lucky that I'm not the judge. But I can tell you that years ago I walked away from it, and that's for a reason.
Tonight with us, a real superstar in the wrestling industry. You know her as Chyna, her real name, Joanie Laurer. Here she is. Since Benoit's death, shocking death in his own home, his multi-million-dollar home in the Atlanta suburbs, he was found dead along with his wife and his 7-year-old little boy. It focused so much attention on the wrestling industry, and now we learn steroids are seemingly routine. Chyna, tell me, first of all, how did you get into wrestling? I mean, it's like the mind doesn't get this beautiful woman is a wrestler, a pro wrestler.
I'm still getting it just now, Nancy, I think many years later. I originally wanted to be in the movies. I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to be on TV. And I just happened to be involved in athletics at a very early age. I hung out at gyms after school, and it was kind of recreational for me. So I began developing my body at the age of 14, 15 years old. Correct. Yeah, it was the time when women were starting to do aerobics and whatnot, but I was hanging out with the male crowd in the gyms after school, so that got my interest perked in lifting weights, and thereafter I learned that I was starting to sculpt my body. So I would go out for commercials and different television roles, but obviously I didn't see myself as this kind of developed girl or woman. So
sculpted. Really sculpted. How many hours a day would you spend in the gym to look the way you did at the height of your wrestling career? Hey everybody, Chyna is with us. We're about to get to the deadline with Congress and the WWE. WWE must answer by tomorrow about complaints from Capitol Hill. The clock is ticking on the WWE. We'll see what they've got to say. But we are taking your calls. You're with me, Chyna, former WWE superstar. Her real name, Joanie Laurer. Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that I would spend, school would end about 3 or 4 for me, and I would do after-school intramurals, and which I was never good at any sport, but I would do everything. Yeah, any sport that was available to me. I was horrible at all of them, and then I would go to the gyms where I would swim, lift weights, feel like I was dancing with all of the aerobics classes, and was very self-competitive. I pushed myself, did push-ups, sit-ups, all of the, the hardcore exercises.
So how many
Till
years?
like 10 or 11 at night.
For you to look, 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's been hours.
You would spend hours in the gym every day.
That was my life.
How did you first end up stepping into a wrestling ring?
I was watching, I came in one night from the gym, and my sister was watching it on television.
Watching what?
Wrestling.
Okay.
And I looked over, and I didn't really know anything about it. I mean, I'd heard of wrestling, obviously, like everybody in the world, but I didn't know the specifics or the specific characters or athletes. And I looked over, and I started chuckling to myself, and I said, oh, I could do that. I would be perfect. I would fit the mold for that. I'm going to be a wrestler. And I started traveling to go see shows. I started getting to know people in the industry, whoever I could. I started calling. There wasn't a local wrestling school. I didn't know that they even existed, but I somehow worked my way into the organization, and that's what I would say once I was hired. I really started learning.
I'm comparing to you. I think about the first time I ever tried a case, first time I ever struck a jury. What was it like the first time you went in a ring for a professional wrestling bout? Do you remember?
I do. It was, I had no idea what was coming my way. And the funny part, Nancy mentioned, is that in my mind, I had always wanted to be the supermodel, but I was this big girl, and so I viewed it as playing a role.
How tall are you?
5'10". So I viewed it as playing a role, and when I was hired for wrestling, and that was a role to me. I just happened to be a good athlete.
You've got about 10 inches, but I think I got about 80 pounds on you. Okay, go ahead.
You'd whip my butt, Nancy. I was
First time in the ring.
loved it. I loved.
Did you win?
I was actually, I started off as a bodyguard manager type of role, so I really didn't do much for the first few years. I was a presence.
Did
more
you
than
ever
anything.
wrestle a man?
That's all I really did. I was known for the first female to really have the strength and the demeanor, and won many times. Yes.
Many times.
Many times.
Let's go out to the lines. Justin in Oklahoma. Hi, Justin.
Hello, Nancy.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
What's your question, dear?
My question is, what is Chyna's reaction to what has happened with Chris Benoit's death?
You know what? Hold on one moment. Before we go to her on that, let's get the very latest on what is happening. As you know, Justin, in Oklahoma, deadline tomorrow. The clock is ticking. Capitol Hill wants answers as to how many and why so many pro wrestlers are dying before 50. Hey, Elizabeth, let's run that list of how many pro wrestlers have died before their times. It is incredible. Out to Dave Meltzer with the WrestlingObserver.com and friend of Chris Benoit. Dave, tell me about the very latest regarding the investigation to these deaths.
I don't know that there's really anything new at this point. There's two different Senate committees working on the subject. They've subpoenaed other wrestling companies for records that probably don't exist. They've subpoenaed WWE for records that do exist. And what happens from there, time will tell.
Brian Alvarez with Figure4Online.com. What else can you tell us?
WWE actually sent a response to Congress last week. It was a very conciliatory letter. They just basically said, here's the information. We're going to send you our wellness policy. If you want more information...
wellness policy.
Their wellness policy.
Whoa. Brian Alvarez, I know you're just giving me the facts, but Chyna, you're on cross now. How many drug tests did you ever take with the WWE?
Not one.
Okay, now what were you saying about that wellness policy?
WWE does, in fact, have a wellness policy. It may not be a good policy.